I'll get it clean.
Good evening, everybody. It's a call to order. Thank you. It's a call to order the month we're in, November meeting of Teaching, Learning, and Equity. I will start with roll call. Dr. Dietrich.
Here.
Mrs. Fry.
Here.
And I'm here, so 3 of us are here. We have 2 public comments. Do we need to go through the protocol? I think it's fine. Okay. So when I call your name, come up to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes. It'll be projected on the screen. First comment is Judy DeFonso. And if you don't mind, if you could state your name and your township principality.
I think I remember hearing that someplace before. Hello, Judy DeFonso, East Goshen Township. I don't see a timer though. Do we have a timer?
I can set my phone.
Well, you know what, I think that we may have people with a learning curve here, so I think the other speaker also has a learning curve, so. Just wanted to say briefly about the calendar. I noticed that Easter Monday is now a day off. I know I enjoyed that because I traveled at a distance for Easter, but like I said last time, you can't please everyone, so, you know, you do the best you can. I know a lot of families would love to see when the first day of the ESY is. That could be put on the calendar. I know we've never done it in the past, but it's a thought. We can always do new and different things. Curriculum, I don't see ASL. I know I'm looking forward to having ASL, but I know there's a shortage of teachers and stuff like that. I'm not sure if there is a provision like within the course selection guide that says that if you want to take a class, you know, they can make a, you know, one-off kind of, you know, thing for someone to take a class at community college or online or what have you. Might be at a cost to the family. If it's an IEP thing, it might be at a cost to the school. I don't know. PSSA numbers. I noticed that, as I say, we're doing better than the rest of the state, so yay Westchester. But I know that we use MTSS as a kind of the program for bringing kids up to speed when they're basic and below basic. And that's designed for 15 to 20% of the student population. And our numbers, as well as the state's numbers, are bigger than that. And let's just say, it'd be nice to see those numbers moving more towards, you know, 15 to 20%, because that's kind of, I guess, where the expectation is. Trying to think if there was, yeah, let's just say, also tying back to the curriculum, I don't know, with the new curriculum that was brought in the foundations, if we can have a comparison between before and now, although I think the standards changed, so that may not that be maybe more of a moot point. I'm gonna go a little bit off topic here. 250 years ago today, Tun Tavern, Philadelphia, birth of the Marine Corps. And go Birds.
Thank you, Ms. DeFonso. Next, Kathy Batchelor. And if you could state your name and your municipality, please.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Batchelor. I am from Thornbury Township, and I am a parent of 6 children, all who have attended or are currently attending Westchester area schools. So for 22 years, I have been a parent of a student here. And I nearly fell out of my seat when I saw that the proposed start time for 2026 had school beginning 2 weeks before Labor Day. I decided decided to forego my annual call to Dr. Missett to discuss the calendar, and it motivated me to contact maybe some of you via email. I apologize for the inbox. But I also was motivated to attend this meeting tonight because this proposed calendar is wildly different from any other calendar in the past 22 years. It's a significant change that impacts all students, faculty, and staff. In fact, it violates Board Policy 803, which will have to be changed in order to approve this calendar. But there's no reason for it. 2026 is not extraordinary. Labor Day is simply September 7th. It happens once every 7 years. It's foreseeable, it happens. And I'm not advocating to have school start after Labor Day. Rather, 1 week before Labor Day would be more impactful for all the students, because a change of 2 weeks will affect especially the high schoolers. In my family, I require all of my kids to get a 40-hour work week job in the summer. First question employers ask is, how long can you work? When does school start? Additionally, if you have students in high school who play band or fall sports, that would require them returning to school August 10th, almost a full month before Labor Day of September 7th. I've also heard it argued that this is simply 1 day earlier than this current year, but that's misleading. You have to keep the comparisons uniform. It's 2 weeks before Labor Day, and the proposed is 2 weeks. We started 1 week before Labor Day this past year. And the proposed calendar also has, even though it's starting 2 full weeks before Labor Day, we still don't have a full week of spring break. And after 22 years, I've had full spring breaks and partial spring breaks, and I really now understand the importance of a full spring break. Students, teachers, they all need the time off. And I've been told the community split on it, but if you poll the community during March and April when other school districts have a full week off, I guarantee the results would be different. So it is possible to accomplish both, have a 1 week start before Labor Day and a full week off at spring break. Other schools have the constraints of religious holidays and professional development. It is possible. There's other vehicles maybe to explore, but I implore the calendar committee to please maybe roll up the sleeves and have another crack at it, because I think it would be very helpful to have 1 week prior to Labor Day and a full week off at spring break. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Next on the agenda is approval of the October 13th, 2025 Teaching, Learning, and Equity Committee meeting minutes. Any questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries 3-0. Next, we have a number of action items. The first is approval of the winter booster clubs and athletic groups. Dr. Conley will present.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Janelle. This evening we are seeking the approval for the following winter booster groups for the 25-26 school year. They are as follows. East High School, swimming and diving, boys basketball, girls basketball, boys wrestling and girls wrestling. At Henderson High School, swimming and diving, boys basketball, girls basketball, and wrestling. Ruston High School, swimming and diving, boys basketball, girls basketball, and wrestling. And also we are requesting the approval for the following athletic groups, registered athletic groups. At East High School, that is ice hockey and color guard, and at Ruston High School, boys volleyball. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from anyone? Okay, all in favor of approving the booster clubs and athletic groups list, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries 3-0. Thank you, Dr. Conley. Next, we're seeking approval of the draft calendar for the 2026-2027 school year. Second reading. Dr. Missett is going to present.
Thank you, Director Darnell. I do have before you tonight the second reading of the 26-27 school year calendar. And as I have mentioned in all my communications to family and staffs, that this is not the same calendar that you saw during the first read. There were changes that we made to it before we sent it to our community and our staff members. And I'll go over those changes throughout each month. The first day of school proposed as a draft form is Monday, August the 24th. It is 2 weeks prior to Labor Day, which is September the 7th. There are 2 weeks of 4 days in August, and we have that traditionally had 4 weeks before Labor Day, 4-day weeks before Labor Day for our staffs and the community. Moving on, I just want to note in November, because this seems to be confusion for most families, is that November the 25th is a no student day. That is a no student day. We'll make sure that we communicate a little clearer for that November day. Moving on into January and February of 2027, there's a half day of January 15th that leads into a long weekend for families. Same thing for February. February 12th is a half day. It's a PM in-service day for our teachers. So that allows for some travel time for families. In March, I wanted to note that spring break is no longer a full week as it was during the first reading. We made that change because we had to add a religious holiday in May that we did not have during the first read. So that kind of pushed the calendar back into June. So we decided to keep the way that spring break has been, with a half day on Wednesday, no school on Thursday and Friday, and off on that Monday. We decided to go back to that. You know, one of the goals when we do calendars is to start a school year, but it's also the end of the school year. We want to be cognizant of when we finish school. In April, we have an in-service day. The May day that we added to the calendar since the first reading is Monday, May the 17th, and it's an E day. The 18th in May 2027, that is an election day. And then moving into June, the last 3 days of the school year are always half days. That day would be 7th, 8th, and 9th, with 2 built-in snow days, the 10th and the 11th. Without any snow days, we would be ending school on June the 9th. So some of the rationale for starting school on the 24th, we did survey the county, Chester County, and not everybody is as far along as the calendar process as we are, but some are. What I will tell you is that as of today, the Downingtown, Great Valley, Phoenixville, and Westchester Area School District are proposing to start on Monday, August the 24th. As I said, many other school districts in the county, they have not started this process yet. They don't start until January. So, and as Dr. Christopher maybe has mentioned to you, that we are not going to vote officially on this month of November. We're going to push it back into the new year. We're going to wait to get some more facts from the county and talk to other school districts to really analyze the start of the school year for 2026. With that being said, things to be made aware of is that we are under construction renovations in 3 of our elementary schools. So the later that we end school, the less time that our construction teams have in those buildings. Something to be made aware of. In addition to that, the surveys, I will share this, the surveys that we sent to staff, 52 staff members replied to the form, the Google form, about average. And 233 families responded to the Google form for families. A little higher than typical, and the majority of the comments from the families, from the community, were at the start of the school year. As tossed in there, spring break being a full week, and the reason for all the holidays that we honor. So with that being said, I'm going to reiterate it again. This is a draft form. We are not going to officially adopt the calendar, the 2026-27 calendar, until the month into the new year. So more to come on that. Any questions that I can answer with regard to the proposed calendar?
Any questions or comments from anybody? Committee or board?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
It's my only shot to ask. Sorry. So I know you mentioned earlier that historically end of year days are half days. Is there, like, what's the logic behind that? Because I have personally heard a lot of feedback from parents about, like, why is that? And it's not the best.
So we have to have 182 student days. That's per our contract. What we have done in the past is we have used those half days for teacher in service things. So that's why we get the 182 days in, and we use that as teacher in service in the afternoon.
Could we do that differently? Like do a full day and 1 half day for the students, or we need the 3 half days to get the student days?
We need that 3 half, they don't have to be half days, we make them half days so we can use the other half day for our teachers.
For in-service. All right, yeah,
Yeah, I think another point is that up until, actually next year, we won't have air conditioning in all of our elementary schools. So that's been part of the process as well. We actually had to kick kids out early, the 2 buildings, we had to do a early dismissal twice last year, I think, because of the heat. So I mean, I know that's been part of that conversation in June as well. We'll not be moving forward at some point, surely.
and then just, you know, some other feedback, we've gotten some communications, I'm sure we've all heard about the social media feedback. And there's a lot of questioning and concern both about the start, but also the number of holidays generally throughout the year, and just the amount of disruption that it causes. Because when you do look at this calendar, I mean, there's not like 2 full weeks of school for almost the first 3 months, if even. I think we get to November before there's like 2 weeks without an interruption, right? And I mean, I guess personally, I know we've reviewed this before, but I'm wondering like, why do we not just follow like the state calendar, like the state and federal holiday calendar, and then our in-service days and other things, because that would give us the flexibility to adjust the start date and accommodate finishing early with our half days so that we can still, you know, so we don't have students in buildings in mid-June when it's hot. I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity here for us to really like reset, and especially as we take community feedback.
That's going to be part of the conversation moving forward too, Director Walmsley, but we are going to discuss that. It's something that has been brought to our attention, so it's worthy of a conversation for sure.
Because like Veterans Day would be a day off, and I think that would be cool. But, you know, I appreciate you guys taking the feedback and taking the pause, because I know that there was a lot of discussion around this, and I appreciate members of the community coming out tonight, because this is the time to do it, so thank you.
Thank you.
I was just gonna say, I really appreciate that Westchester School District respects the whole community. And I think by not just showing, by not just including the Christian holidays, but we have a significant Indian population in Westchester, a significant Hispanic population, significant, you know, we have a multicultural community. And I really think that those holidays, even though they do provide a level of disruption, you know, a day here and a day there, I think it's worth it in that it really shows that we value all members of our community from a variety of backgrounds.
So the state calendar actually doesn't take Easter. Easter is actually not a federal holiday. So like my suggestion would actually remove that one. Also, it doesn't necessarily benefit Christian holidays. It would actually bring back in things like Veterans Day, which, you know, are culturally significant to everybody who lives in this country. So it just might be worth consideration of what is truly inclusive for the community. And, you know, if we don't always have all of those holidays, they could always be used as instructional days to teach culturally appropriate lessons for the holidays that we do want to give respect to, and that could be a really great use of classroom time. So I think there's a lot of ways to accomplish the goal without necessarily as much disruption to the students, because they really do need consistency, and I think you can appreciate that as a teacher yourself. So.
And I also appreciate any day off I can get at the same time. So I think your points are valid, and I think it is worthy of discussion.
One more, Mrs. Batchelor, you still there? We did change policy 803 during our policy committee because we knew that this was going to be a concern. So that policy we did update.
Did you just reword it? Or change
Yes,
the
we
number of
reworded it
days?
so that we reworded it so Labor Day does not impact the start of school.
Can I ask a question? How are some of the in-service days decided on? For interesting, I mean, I see like November 3rd is Election Day, October 21st.
So great question. So at that time of the school year, we know that we want to get our data teams together, and we want to make sure that they are looking at all the data that we collected since the beginning of the school year. That assessment window in September closes the last week in September. Maybe even dribbles, don't quote me on this, dribbles into October. So we want to take a look, and we want to make sure that our data teams are looking at everything that we collected on beginning of the year assessments so that we can start planning for instruction throughout the rest of the year. That was the purpose for the 21st. And we always talk to our teaching, learning, and equity team to decide when is the best time to have these days that we are going to pull our families out of school.
So would it make sense to have those days be on a Monday or a Friday? So it's not breaking up the weeks for working families as much?
That has always been a discussion too. We've always said, when are we gonna hold these? We have found that it's best for our teaching staff to hold them during, on a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Well, just one thing on that. You've mentioned that before, that you get better adherence on a Wednesday, and the thing is, it should be what's best for the students first, right? And a midweek disruption is not what's best for the students. And the adults who need to take their training or do their in-service should come on the day that that's appointed. It should not matter. Any day that ends in Y is an eligible day for them. So we really should try to pick those and do whatever we need to do through policy or process to ensure that the professionals who need to be there for their professional development do that regardless of what day of the week we ask them to do it. Just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just one small comment, which shouldn't be totally driving our decision, but I will also point out that Westchester University's fall semester starts on the 24th as well, because I know there's been some community discussion about coordinating with college schedules. So in that sense, we are coordinating with at least one of the major universities in our area.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just wanted to add, and just in listening to the feedback on the holidays, I think it presents also an opportunity for us as we become more inclusive with the holidays that we celebrate, for it to also be an opportunity from an educational standpoint to build the strength of empathy, which I know is one of our skills that we're focused on as a district, because it allows us, you know, whether it's a colleague or a classmate, if it's a celebratory occasion, it's an opportunity to learn why that is celebrated and put ourselves in the shoes of others, which is basically what empathy is. So I do think we can combine sort of the recognition that we're in a multicultural society, and we want to celebrate in an inclusive way, but we also want to educate and learn. And I think there's an opportunity to sort of do both in terms of our messaging around the holidays that we celebrate.
And I'll just add to that, we have in the last few years have had members of the community from other religions other than Christianity come to our board meetings and very nicely, articulately explain why it's important for them to have these major holidays for their religion off as a full holiday. And I think we all at the time, that was part of the reason why some of these holidays were added.
I would just add and try to articulate as best I can. You mentioned other districts don't start this process till January, and I haven't been here super long. Maybe parts of 4 school years at this point, I think, and we're like always reviewing the calendar. There's like always a mistake. So I just wonder if, I don't know how the process works on your end, but we approved a full week of spring break. That was taken back. Cat was out of the bag, a little bit egg on our face, a little bit, the community, although it wasn't sent to them, but this is public. So I don't know if just waiting, pausing a month and delaying just to cross the T's and dot the I's would be helpful, but I feel like last spring we were even changing the calendar for this year. So, I don't remember all the specifics, but maybe just refine the process a little bit. I mean, we missed a holiday, that we typically have off for. So that would just be my comment.
And, I'm glad that you shared that, Mr. Christine. I know developing a calendar for a school is a huge task. For a district our size, it's even more huge. So I know it's complicated. You know that you work hard at it. But if there are things that we can do to tweak it to make it easier on those of you who are planning it and more accessible to those of us who are living with it, I think it'd be good, always good to take that look, to see how we can do things better. But thank you for your hard work, because I know it's not an easy task. If there are no other questions or comments, okay, we'll go ahead and seek approval of the draft calendar for the 2026-27 school year. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Carries 3-0. Thank you, Dr. Missick. Next, we're going to see the Dream Team. We're going to hear about new course proposals from Ms. Coulter, and the members of the Dream Team, the TLE committee group.
I'm honored to be up here with the Dream Team.
We've drafted her.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to present to you our new career education program. I am thrilled to be rolling this out because it is a result of a lot of work that's taken place over the last few years. This program, like I said, is our updated career education program, which has been in place in various forms for many years. But the program that we are proposing to begin in the 2026-2027 school year will be offered to our seniors at all 3 high schools. Carol Lill, Jen Rogers, and a yet-to-be-named third internship coordinator will be at each of the 3 high schools coordinating and teaching the programs. The reason we decided to update this program is because the district has done so much work on Portrait of a Graduate, and in listening to what was being developed and the characteristics that we were really trying to hone in our students, we realized that the experiential learning of career education is just really almost the perfect fit for this. In allowing students to learn in the workplace, it allows them that bridge between their academics and their future goals. And we know with a lot of research that we've been doing and book studies and discussion that there's some engagement issues with our students, and we're feeling like that our students are disengaged somewhat. And perhaps the reason for that is because they don't feel that connection and they don't see that through line of what they're learning now and how important it is for their future. And work-based learning really allows them to experience that in real time as they're doing the work. So here's what the program and class looks like. The first 2 arms of the program, the internship and the cooperative education program, we are looking to roll out at the beginning of the 2026-2027 school year. The launch program, which is the 3rd arm, would not be until the year after. So I'm only going to really focus on the first 2 arms for next year. So the internship program is for college-bound seniors. However, you can be part of this program without necessarily being college-bound. So when we say for college-bound seniors, it's typically generally students who are college-bound. It's about 2 days a week, 2 to 3 hours a day, 80 hours in total for the semester, and it is unpaid. Along with the experiential learning, there's also a 1-semester asynchronous career readiness class that goes along with that. The cooperative education program differs slightly, still for seniors, and we have it termed as seniors ready to enter the workforce. Again, you can have a senior that is going to college and can absolutely be part of this program, but what we're really seeing is, and I did not coin this phrase, but I love it and I use it all the time because it is so applicable, is for students who are done with school but school's not done with them. This is kind of the perfect setup for them. And this is 15 paid hours per week at the job site, and along with that is a 1-semester course that meets in person once per week. The 3rd arm of the program is our launch program, and this is for our more at-risk seniors that need graduation support. So these might be for our students that are in the APT program, perhaps they have IEPs or 504s and need a little bit more support. Also, at least 15 paid work hours per week, and a 1-semester course that meets weekly in person. The difference in this course is that there'll be a strong SEL component to it. So they'll be going over things like how to deal with conflict with your coworker, or how to accept feedback from your supervisor, things that some of our students that are needing more graduation support might really benefit from. In terms of credits and the internship program, we're offering an internship 1 and an internship 2. Each one is 0.5 credits. So internship one will be offered first and second semester in order to allow some flexibility for students who maybe are in the band or in a play or play a sport and they're not able to be in the first semester, so they can take it second semester as well. They will have the asynchronous course. Of course, their core classes will be scheduled first, and they'll have a scheduled 8th period giving them time to leave early and take early dismissal, or if they need to, they can take an 8th period class and then attend their internship afterwards. The second semester is 0.5 as well. Assuming that they did a semester 1, then this would be their second semester, totaling 1.0 credits. Again, an asynchronous course. This would be the opportunity for students to either, they may be loving their internship and they want to extend it for into a full year, or perhaps they want to have a completely new experience and have 2 internships their senior year. But that they will have a maximum of 1.0 credits for the year. The cooperative education credits look slightly different. Again, we're having Cooperative Ed 1 and Cooperative Ed 2 for the same reasons. Each one is up to 1.5 credits, and let me explain that. So students can work up to 15 hours a week would be 0.5 credits for the semester. 16 to 19 hours a week would be 1 credit, and 20 to 23 hours would be 1.5 credits. So if they participated in the co-op program for both semesters, they would have a maximum total of 3 credits for the year. For the co-op Ed 1, again, students work a minimum of 15 hours, up to 23 hours a week. Their core classes would be scheduled first, and they would be scheduled for 7th and 8th period to provide early dismissal. This way that if they wanted to, they could do the internship program or the co-op program and be back in time again for a play practice, a sports practice, any type of something that they wanted to do after school as well. Here are some of the topics that are on the PDE website for career education, for some of the curriculum that will be covered in each of the classes. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
For the cooperative education program, and maybe you said this and I missed it.
Sure.
Is the school district finding that job site for them, or are they finding it themselves?
Right, so I'm so glad you asked that. So this is a little bit of a difference than what we had in the past. Previously and currently, students bring their job to us and say, here's my job at Fridays, and I'm bussing tables, and here's my paycheck, and and then we work like that for pay stub, not paycheck. We're not taking their paychecks. So what we have been working on, Carol Lill has been working on this extensively all last year. We worked through the summer, and now currently is to get a bank of community partners in all different areas, in hospitality, in the medical field, in education, all different veterinary, anything we can find. And we're gonna have that bank of employers that are willing to take on an intern or a co-op student. So that way the student expresses interest, comes to us, they will then meet with the coordinator, and the coordinator will go over some career interest surveys, some strengths and needs analysis, and just really talk to the student to find out what they're looking for. And then we've already vetted a whole stable of community partners that we can then go ahead and pair them with. They can also bring a job if they'd like, but which will still be vetted even if they're bringing it to us.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
Sure, thank you.
When do we plan on reaching out to the prospective employers for the opportunities?
Sure, so that's been happening all along. We have about 20 employers already that have already signed the paperwork and we're in contracts with them. Actually, this is a perfect little plug chance here. So on November 19th, we're having a luncheon. Dr. Christopher is sponsoring a luncheon for the chambers. An invitation went out to any business partners in the area. Anybody who's interested can come to the meeting, right? And we're going to explain the program and hopefully bring in as many businesses as we can. And really, a lot of the internship coordinators' time right now is just spent really, filling holes, cold calling, going to businesses, making elevator pitches, and just really trying to bring people in and, and give them the opportunity to really see how beneficial this is for our students. This week, actually, Wednesday and Thursday, we're having the parents come in and, just doing a question and answer and a presentation for them as well.
Thank you.
So we currently have a program for seniors in their last month before graduation where they can, if they're caught up on everything they need toward graduation, they can do an internship. Would this be replacing that or in addition to that, or is there no relationship whatsoever?
Right. I would say that this would be a replacement for that, because we really want to keep this as structured as possible. We have a lot of really great programs in place already that we definitely don't want to get rid of, that, with our allied health partners. And so we're all under that umbrella of career education, and that's how it's going to look in the course catalog, a little bit more organized so parents can see kind of what their options are. But as far as the internship, I think the internship is solely going to be this senior year.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what was work study is now like ultra enhanced with opportunities, with education, with support. So I think it's a great program. Any other questions or comments?
If I could just interject one thing really quickly that I forgot to mention is that the other piece of the support of this is that we have career counselors, and the internship coordinators will also be doing site visits regularly. So not only will the students get to meet with them in school, but they're going to be going out regularly and meeting with the employers and the students out in the workplace, to ensure safety and fidelity.
I also like the curriculum topics that are going to be covered. Again, that's really going to be providing a lot of support and instruction for the students. And I like that in the internship program, the students have the opportunity to have 2 experiences. So many students enter college and they have no idea what they want to do. And this gives students an opportunity to say, hey, I don't know anything about veterinary science, or I don't know anything about economics, but here's a chance where they can find out and get credit at the same time and get some real guidance.
We always say the worst internship is sometimes the best internship because it has saved students and their parents probably hundreds of thousands of dollars of wasted money in college when they realize that, they can't stand the sight of blood or something like that.
If there aren't any other questions or comments, then we'll go ahead and call for a vote to approve of the new course proposals. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes 3-0. Thank you, Ms. Colvin.
Thank you.
And now we have a few contracts that we're going to seek approval for. We'll start off with Dr. Brown talking about the contract for, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot, sorry, thanks for keeping me honest. All right, so now we're voting for the course proposals. Is that correct? Is that what?
We're going to share some additional proposals.
Yes, thank you.
So we have a handful of new course proposals for next year, and then some adaptations of some existing courses that we're going to talk through this evening. This is generally our structure of where we look at new courses and new course proposals and curriculum updates. I'm going to briefly review the curriculum cycle, give you a couple explicit examples. Right now we are in implementation phase 1 of our mystery science curriculum that we adopted last year, and we are in the process of adopting 2 new curricular resources for our ELA, elementary and secondary, so that will be the curriculum development, and they will go into implementation next year. Here's a by-year outline. It is a couple pages of what our curriculum development process looks like for each of our core areas and our supplemental areas as well. And specifically tonight, Ian and Dina are going to speak to their proposed courses, some of which I'll bring up later when I talk about our state requirements for graduation.
Good evening. We want to start off first with a reminder. The state has forthcoming a graduation requirement for personal finance. Super excited for this. As someone who's supervised the business ed department for quite some time, we have advocated for this at the state level for probably 15 plus years. So to see this come to fruition is a benefit for all students across the Commonwealth, but of course that includes our students here in Westchester. So this is twofold. We have a semester-based course that we've offered for years here within the district. We offer it brick and mortar, and we offer it in our soccer school. So that will continue as a semester experience, and that will satisfy the graduation requirement for personal finance. The College Board also is now offering this course, AP Business with Personal Finance, which will combine a lot of the principles that we do in our business curriculum, but will also embed and infuse a lot of the personal finance standards such that we can ensure that students are leaving that class both with an overall business perspective, but also with just a really deep understanding of personal finance and as per all the state standards. So it's an interesting course. We're still, in fact, we have a meeting tomorrow with the Chester County Intermediate Unit as we're continuing to learn more as the College Board rolls out exactly what that looks like. It's part of the AP Career Kickstart experience, and so we have this year AP Networking is one of our courses that we have in place currently. On the next slide, I'll talk about another opportunity for that. But AP Career Kickstart is really just to give students a chance to take an AP class, and some of that content might not directly relate to a career credit necessarily. It can, but it's also intended to provide students an opportunity to learn deeply about career skills that they could potentially put into place sooner rather than later. Part of the rationale there is both with like a business, personal finance, as well as cybersecurity and networking. If you have a really deep understanding of those content areas, you might not necessarily need 4 years of school to get a really well paying job to provide a really valuable service as well, and that's part of the College Board rationale. So it covers all the business skills and fundamentals, and as I shared, it does align with the graduation requirement as well. The other course, I'll just get through both and be happy to take questions, is AP Cybersecurity. So we onboarded AP Networking this current school year, and that's going well. It's been a very interesting course, helping students kind of like take apart computers, put them back together, understand the inner workings of them, and how they connect on a larger scale. So AP Cybersecurity is not necessarily like a part two to that, but it is somewhat of an accompaniment to the networking experience. So as you'll see, it provides students a deeper understanding and application within digital security, data protection, as well as how devices and data get shared. So just in a world where I think probably goes without saying cybersecurity just takes on a bigger role, this could be a tremendous offering for our students. And I know we have teachers who are excited for this, but fully acknowledging that we have a lot to learn ourselves, just to kind of catch up with everything, or just to stay in the know of everything that exists in the world of AP Cybersecurity. So I'll pause there for any questions that I can help answer on those two courses.
So will any of the personal finance and cybersecurity content be embedded in any other curricula for classes that are non-AP?
So the personal finance semester-based course that I mentioned, so that's a non-AP course, and that'll meet all the standards as well. So students are required by the state to have a standalone personal finance class on their transcript. But we also know that we embed a lot of our personal finance standards within social studies and economics. We have some math courses where we do it as well. So it's been a lot of fun. I've been working with Dr. Weary, and we just had a lot of fun kind of reinforcing our own beliefs in the sense that personal finance is so valuable, and it's also not something you just want to see once and be done with it. So the more students can see it, talk about the math behind it, talk about the economics behind it, talk about specific to a Roth IRA or long-term investment strategies. We have a stocks and investment class that we've tied into this as well. So looking at this at like a comprehensive level, not just the course by itself.
Great. A penny saved is a penny earned.
We hope so. We hope so. Well said. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Brummer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I can actually speak to the cybersecurity aspect of your question. At the middle school level, we're looking to just revise a little bit of the curriculum components and the structure of two of our computer science courses. Just to keep up with the times, we're in year 2 of Elementary Design Lab, and we're certainly seeing growth in our students and their capabilities, and obviously technology doing what technology does and continuing to advance. We want to make sure that our courses are also advancing and preparing our students the best we can. So we're proposing to update internet and web design to internet and cybersecurity, shifting the focus a little bit more about the technology behind the use of the internet, digital ethics, and so on, but also including network security and just safe computing as our students enter into the world of all the things that we can do online and all the things that maybe we shouldn't do online. The other proposal that we're making is to update innovative coding to innovative coding and AI. We're in the throes of things. We're running different explorations with different AI tools with our teachers and our students, and we want them to use AI responsibly. But the focus in this particular course would be more on how AI works. So exploration of AI concepts, machine learning, algorithm bias, and those components, just so again we get some exposure to the workings of AI so that we can better understand how to use it responsibly. So those are 2 at the middle school level. And then we're proposing to revise or update our Human Anatomy and Infectious Disease course to just rename to be Human Anatomy and Physiology. The goal here, or the objective, is to align a little bit more with post-secondary study for students who are seeking careers or study in the health fields. A lot of it is certainly based on A&P, as they like to call it, as you get into further study. And we want to make sure that we're doing the best we can to prepare students for whatever futures they seek. We're not abandoning the study of infectious disease, we're just incorporating it more intentionally with the study of the immune system and the different body systems where appropriate, but also bringing greater attention to the physiology of the different aspects of human anatomy throughout the course. And those are the course revisions or updates that we're proposing. Any questions about any of those 3?
Questions, comments, anybody? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we need to vote on making, I jumped the gun earlier. So, seeking approval of the Career Compass course presentation and also the new course proposal and curriculum updates. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Carries 3-0. Thank you. Now it's your turn, right, Dr. Brown?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Dr. Brown's going to talk about a contract for Army of Learners.
So our first contract tonight is for Army of Leaders, which is a organization run by Lori Hayes, who I met this summer at a conference and then ran into her again in the fall at another conference, and we got to talking about understanding what her Army of Leaders does. But in short, she's going to meet virtually with a group of students from each of our 3 high schools from this week on through probably early February. And in February, what those students are going to do, she's going to prepare them to actually run a belonging conference. So it'll be a student-run conference, which she will lead the kids in that process, and then our equity advocates will also be involved from each of our 3 high schools. And we're going to pool then students from each of the 3 high schools for the conference. So it won't be just the 15-ish or so kids running it. We're going to then pull 25 or 30 kids from each of our 3 high schools, bring them together for a belonging conference. And the kids are really the ones who are kind of putting all this together. Like, she's done this many times before, so she knows kind of the path, but the students are ultimately the ones who are going to decide on the direction of this conference and what it actually looks like once they start meeting.
So the conference, is it one conference for all 3 high schools or one conference per high school?
One conference for all 3 high schools. So we're
Okay.
going to have, roughly 100 students all together from all 3 high schools at once.
Okay. And community members can attend too, or is it just for, you said it's just for students?
Just for students.
Okay.
How were the leaders identified to facilitate the student-run conference?
So they were chosen by their buildings, whether that was a combination. It was handled differently at each school. I think some schools got input from obviously counselors, teachers, Principals had a say, assistant principals, coaches were involved in that process, but it was a collective effort at each school, and then who they explicitly chose to be part of that process was a little different, but teachers and administrators and coaches were very much heavily involved in choosing the kids.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just for, I guess this would be a question probably is just the cost of all these. There's a few, and I don't have none of the actual contracts that are attached, so I'm not sure.
If you log in, they are,
Oh.
but if you're not logged in, you can't see them.
The Army of Leaders contract is
You just have-
$19,000.
Okay.
And that's bi-weekly meetings with the kids for a little over, well, just shy of 3 months, and then the actual conference in and of itself.
Sorry, thank you.
That's all right.
Anyone else? Okay, so approval is sought for the contract with Army of Leaders. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Passes 3-0. And now Dr. Brown is going to talk about the contract for AIM.
The second contract is with the AIM Institute. They are located in Manioc. They really explicitly focus on what's referred to as the science of reading and or structured literacy. And that is everything from phonemical awareness, phonics, vocabulary, comprehension. Really, it's the core of how we get our kids to be able to read. So they're going to work explicitly with 2 or 3 of our elementary schools and teachers in those buildings from K to 2, because that's where a lot of this work is grounded. And the idea is that, you know, they come in, they do the professional learning. It's 3 in-day sessions, full-day sessions for our teachers. Our teachers are then going to be able to figure out how we can then take and expand on that training for other teachers, and whether we need this group to come back and do smaller training, or if, you know, between reading specialists and those who get the training, if that's going to be enough to kind of move it forward ourselves. But ultimately, it would be to train all K to 2 teachers, and then branch that out from 3 to 5 down the road. But this contract will be for this year, just for K to 2 teachers in 3 of our elementary schools.
So essentially, this will be like a pilot to see.
That's a good way to put it, yes. They're very expensive, and I want to make sure that our money is well spent. So let's put this in practice a little bit and see how effective it is, and see if it's something we want to continue, and if so, to what extent.
Any other questions or comments?
What will be the metrics that you use to determine if you think this is worth like continuing on? Is there anything specific that you're going to be looking for?
So right now we use our Acadians, which I think is an okay metric. It's a benchmark that the kids take 3 times a year. So by the time these teachers get trained, they will have taken, the kids will have taken the benchmark twice. But in addition to that, we have our new formative assessments, common summative assessment that the kids are taking at the end of each of our units. So there should be some defined growth that the teachers are noticing in where their kids are with really the ability to understand language. That is the core of it for those 3 grade levels.
If we look at states that have had really outsized reading growth in terms of student performance, it's really been based on a training that's very similar to what AIM is offering. And it really is training all the teachers in the building on these foundational components of learning how to read, and also training coaches on that same aspect, and then doing job embedded training with the staff. But AIM is a very reputable, high quality literature training program that is local.
So I have a question I was going to save it for the PSSAs, but which we're going to get to. But about 10 years ago, we had really strong literacy rate. I mean, our ELA scores were so much stronger as a district. Have we done any reflection back to past practices to see things that we maybe were doing before that were more effective? And I understand, like, things also change. The dynamics of our classrooms are different with electronic devices and other things, so everything that used to work doesn't always work now. but this was a strength in the past, right? And rather than us continuing to experiment with new things, I'm just wondering if there are some foundational fundamentals that we have had in the past that we could bring back to just kind of get this directionally correct as well. We see some improvement in math, we are not seeing improvement in English. It's concerning.
I think the difference is that, I don't disagree with you, like there are some core fundamental, how on some level we learn to read, but the science of reading is something that is now designated as a path by most states, including ours. They put it in place a couple of years ago and mandated that teachers be trained. But like anything else, initial training for anything isn't going to be enough, and we need more depth in our understanding of what that looks like in practice in the classroom.
So help me understand that a little bit more. So part of this is dictated by the state, or like how much of this do we control?
The training is our decision, but a shift in how reading is taught was by the state. To the science, so that curriculums are now all aligned to what's referenced as the science of reading, which is phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, comprehension, all very explicitly taught in a very specific way.
Yeah, I guess I never really appreciated how much of that was centrally decided, maybe without understanding and sensitivity to what works in a district. But even if that's true, I mean, we've got data points at neighboring districts. I mean, I look at the elementary literacy levels at our Union Village, Oxford schools, and they're drastically different than ours. Now, I realize that there are some factors, including those of like socioeconomic, that play into performance and all of that, but some of the highest performing elementary schools in the state are in the heart of Philadelphia. So when I think about those things, then, and we're all using the same rules, right? Why are we seeing different outcomes? So there's something in our recipe that we need to tweak, if you will.
I think it's beyond a tweak. I mean, honestly,
Agreed.
Well, and so I would say that like really diving in to making sure that all of our teachers fundamentally understand how to teach reading is a big component of that, and this training will do that work.
So I mean, I realize this is about training, but something else we have talked about in the past, it came up in the last discussion on this, and that is some of the tools that we're using to try to gauge effectiveness are not giving us leading indications. And I think, Alex, you and I really kind of dug in on this last time, because the tools we're using to sort of measure along the way before we get to these big milestones and these big data point collections, they're not giving us the warning signals that we need. So I'm hoping that with the training, maybe we're also getting a better surveillance process so we can have a better sense of efficacy before we get to these big data points. Sorry.
Anybody else, any other questions or comments? All right, approval is sought for the contract to support structured literacy with the AIM Institute. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And passes 3-0. And next, Dr. Whitmire is going to be presenting a contract for Reading Assist.
So good evening. So I'm requesting for contract approval with Yes Reading Assist. Just to give you some background information, it is a nonprofit organization. It's based in Delaware, and it's funded by a grant from the AmeriCorps. So it's funded, which is nice to hear. They provide reading tutors to serve students in grades K-3, again, those foundational years. They will provide 2 fellows at East Goshen Elementary School, and they will provide 30-minute sessions for each of those groups they work with. The program itself is accredited, is multisensory, and it's based off of the structured literacy program. It develops phonemic awareness, phonics, and oral reading fluency skills, so all those foundational things that we know our students benefit from. They are trained by Reading Assist. Again, the fellows can support up to 14 students, and again, we are asking if they partner with East Goshen Elementary School. questions.
Questions or comments?
I think this sounds like a great program, and not least because it's fully funded as well. That's a really nice thing as well. But the idea of having extra support for some of our students who need it, and through a program like this sounds really fabulous, so thank you.
Yeah, I definitely echo the sentiments that Dr. Dietrich just pointed out. I just had a quick question of, is there a specific reason we picked East Goshen out of all the other elementary schools, and is there an opportunity then to expand it? It is successful.
Great questions. We chose East Goshen basically because it's a non-Title I school, so they don't have the same level of support that the other Title I schools had at the elementary level. Also, we noticed that their numbers were increasing in terms of the amount of students qualifying for free and reduced lunch. So that's why we chose them. The way the grant works is year one, you're awarded 2 fellows free of charge. Again, their goal is to grow the program. Our goal is to try it out and see if it's working, if it's making a difference, and how our students respond to the support. So it's another pilot, so to speak.
And how are the students chosen for the groups?
Yes, good question. Definitely a collaborative effort between the reading specialist as well as the principal. They've looked at student data. That's the ultimate driver of who gets support. And they've then identified students who would benefit from the additional support.
Thank you.
Sure.
So the MTSS process, is that part of the selection of the students that participate?
So it's always part of the selection. Of course, we have tier 1, which is all students, and then tier 2. So anytime a student would qualify for more or additional support beyond tier 1, that would be a team decision. That team is the MTSS team, and that is often, again, part of the reading team as well as the principals, as well as other members as well, to support students and to look at that data closely.
Any other questions or comments? Again, it seems like a great opportunity for us.
Wonderful, thank you.
So approval is sought for this contract for reading assist to support reading intervention tutoring services. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes 3-0. And our final contract that we're seeking approval for, Dr. Reynolds will be presenting information about the contract with Hanover Research.
Good evening, thank you. Director Dornell, appreciate that. This is a partnership with Hanover Research that provides us with a research database. So this is a 3-year contract beginning in 2026 and concluding in 2029. What it allows us to do is for any point of practice that we want to deepen in a problem or a point of concern, it gives us access to a research database that we can explore across the nation to say what are other schools or districts that have come up with a similar problem, what has been their approach, what are the research-informed practices, as well as direct support from Hanover. So we have support for specific projects that are addressing teaching and learning, scheduling, anything as far as teaching and learning. So we've been able to engage with Hanover as we've been exploring our scheduling work at the high school level as well as at the middle school level. We've also been able to engage for exploring our content areas of specific need, particularly math, potentially ELA. So this gives us not only access to a database of research, but also direct support through Hanover directly. Any questions?
Questions or comments for anyone? Thank you, Dr. Reynolds.
Thank you.
Seeking approval of the contract with Hanover Research. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes 3-0. Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. And now we have some discussion items. The first is the academic achievement report, and presenting will be the TLE team.
So our 2025 achievement report, as expected, based on our data from September, our scores are not fantastic. But we do have some key findings from what we've explored specific to literacy, math, and some equity concerns as well. From literacy lens, we noted some concerns with applying comprehension and then our analysis of author's purpose. Sorry, I didn't have my glasses on. I wanted to make sure I was on the right page. Author's purpose, and then with math, some gaps in conceptual understanding and problem solving. And then as you're going to see, there are definitive disparities in where our students are achieving as it relates to our EL learners, students with disabilities, those who are from socioeconomically disadvantaged homes, and then our Black and Hispanic students as well. So with that, our focus really is on how do we address some of these issues and needs, and I think you've heard the use Tier 1 instruction used a couple times tonight, but it really is strengthening what happens every day in every classroom. That's what we call Tier 1, and that's part of the first part of MTSS. It's what every kid gets every day, and ensuring that we are supporting that with culturally responsive curriculum and aligned professional development, and that's some of what people like AIM are going to help us do with our students. And then data-informed interventions using formative and common summative assessments to identify where our kids are struggling and making sure that we're making adjustments in the classroom at that Tier 1 level and Tier 2 if needed, which can also happen in the classroom to support students when they're not achieving, so that we're not getting to these large end of unit or end of long period of time assessments that may not be as informative as we need them to be, but we're using smaller assessments along the way and making adjustments as needed. So with that, we're going to start with our ELA plan, and we'll look first at elementary, and Dr. Brookmeyer will speak to that, and then we'll shift over to secondary.
Good evening again. I will talk about elementary. Again, we talked about leveraging PLCs. So the professional learning communities have been amazing. So again, they are specific to grade level teams. So it's meeting with just 4th grade, just at one school. I'm really looking at the data and looking at the students and being part of the conversations to ensure that the planning is going to be meeting the needs of the students. So that's been really good and high leveraging for me as I join those PLCs, and I'm there at the table and in the conversations and adding to those conversations as well. In terms of continuous improvement, as you know, that's happening at all of the schools, the elementary schools. So again, being part of that process, being asked to come in and provide professional development has been a true asset. So being able to be on the same page and to contribute to those conversations as it relates to ELA has been great. The walkthroughs have also been amazing, because that's the informal, everyday look at what's happening in the classroom. So it's talking to teachers, talking to students, and really just observing what's happening and writing it up, and then having some follow-up conversations as needed and necessary. So again, that helps to guide my planning as I walk through and see what's happening. It helps me think about how I can best support not just students, but teachers as well. That leads into continued professional learning. Just last week on November 4th, we had Science of Reading, a lot of different offerings at the elementary level. So again, Science of Reading is not a one and done, it's constantly evolving. So it's something that we've done here at Westchester and will continue to do. Not just because the state has told us we've had to, but because it's good practice. And that when we know better, we do better. So we know that on November 4th, we had sessions for kindergarten and 1st grade teachers working together, as well as 2nd and 3rd, and then 4th and 5th. The benefit of those grade bands was that the instruction was customized and personalized for those grade levels. So teachers walked away with materials that they could use the very next day in their classrooms. So the feedback was very positive, and again, our reading specialist did a wonderful job just presenting that information in ways that was really meaningful for teachers. So we're going to continue to have those professional learning opportunities as it relates to the Science of Reading and beyond. You heard about AIM Institute and this new partnership. We're excited about that. It starts with something called the Knowledge Navigator. So that is that baseline assessment. So we talk about, again, understanding where teachers are to then be able to customize their experiences to make sure that they're not learning or relearning everything that they've already learned, but they're learning new information. So that Knowledge Navigator will just do that, create a baseline assessment for us in terms of assessing their knowledge. After that point, then we can create modules and have in-person experiences. And again, that's something that AIM can do, I can also do as well, but to make sure it's customized to what they need and not just a general experience. We talk about cross-curricular literacy connections. You've heard a lot of that this year. It's definitely been a movement across our teaching and learning department. And that's been really a huge asset for ELA because no longer are we sending the message that ELA is combined to a block, an ELA block. Instead of that, it's extending beyond the block into science, into social studies, into math as well. So it's nice because our teachers who are teaching all subject areas have now permission, and they appreciate having permission, to be able to then go beyond their block and take some of those same strategies that have worked for ELA and then apply them in social studies and science. So we've been very intentional as a department. Even tomorrow I think about, we have a session for induction, and one of the topics that we're focusing on is cross-curricular literacy connections. And we're each going to be talking about how some of those same major strategies that we've identified can carry over into all of those content areas, not just ELA. So again, as we do a better job of closing and making those connections for teachers, then teachers will do a better job making those connections with our students. You've heard me talk about how we're in the process of reviewing options for a new ELA resource. So that first pilot will take place December, so next month. And the committee has been amazing. One of the things that they've been doing, and they're so professional, we've had several meetings with several vendors, and one of the things that they recently asked for was they wanted to be in the seat as a student. So they wanted to experience the lesson as a student. So not just listening to the sales pitches and the promises, but they wanted to see the lessons come to life. So I was able to set that up for us last month. And then just taking that feedback and really thinking about our students, and now that they've had a chance to experience that, thinking about what's going to keep our students engaged as they learn about ELA. And then finally, I'm going to talk about how, and I've said this before, how we really want to, again, it's aligned to the science of reading, but we also know that we need to make sure we're continuing to build our students' background knowledge, and that's really going to help our students transfer what they know to what they don't know, so the known to the unknown. And that's done by, again, building their background knowledge, making sure that the selection that we choose for ELA is going to do just that. They're often called knowledge building resources, which has been great. Again, and that's going to help even our students make those connections across the content areas. Again, so it's not just ELA during the ELA block, but ELA throughout the day. And then hand it over to Kara Bailey.
Good evening. Similar to the elementary level, secondary English teachers have been engaging in a lot of professional learning during their grade level and content area time, which we call their PLC meetings. This has involved meeting with teachers and providing specific strategies that can support the students in their building, in their classrooms. On a broader scale, similarly, we are in the midst of curriculum development. We worked last year to really assess where we are as a department and identify our areas for growth in our curriculum offerings. Over the summer and into this year, we've come together to work on drafting our curriculum and our common assessments, which will have unifying themes that will take place across the district at each grade level. As a part of this work, we're piloting 2 resources. We piloted H&H into literature for the first marking period, and just last week, we wrapped that up and began our pilot with Sabbaths. In each building, we've come together to really hone in on the data. At the building level, our teams meet to discuss specific students and concerns and goals. As a team with a curriculum focus, we meet after each benchmark to review the data, and we look for trends. I'll speak more about this on our next slide, but the goal of these meetings is really to set grade level, building specific goals with clear actionable steps that our teachers can take with our students to work towards that goal before the next benchmark. As a continuation of this work, our teachers at the middle school level have been participating in something called lesson study. In this process, our teachers meet to plan a lesson and observe each other teach that lesson with different groups of students. Our teachers do so much while they're teaching on a day-to-day basis. They're writing passes, they're being involved with their students, and this observation process gives them the chance to really see how their instructional practice is playing out as they're watching in a different classroom, and being able to take that practice in and see the areas of growth and the areas of strength that we can pull forward into all of our instructional practices moving forward. We also recognize as a department that literacy extends beyond the English classroom at the secondary level and into the content areas. We've taken a cross-curricular approach to literacy with our writing instruction in particular this year. We've adopted CER, or Claim Evidence Reasoning, as our framework for written responses. Our students are learning this in English, science, social studies, and other subjects, and they're learning that all written responses, it's best practice to establish your claim, provide your evidence, and then provide reasoning that connects the claim and the evidence together. We want our students to really see that that's a transferable skill that applies to good writing regardless of where they are writing. So as was mentioned before, digging into that benchmarking data is something we've become very intentional about and is a large part of our action plan. This is something that has taken place so far this year in English and math, and our other subject areas are going to be replicating the process as we move throughout the year in social studies, in music, etc. What we do with these data digs is we bring together teachers, one grade level per building, per school at a time, and we look at the recent benchmark data, we look at common assessment data, and we look at the state testing data. We engage in an observation and wondering protocol with a focus on what are the trends we're seeing, what are the areas that we can focus on. And we look for really a root cause analysis. From there, as a team, we set a tangible goal, something specific that's going to directly impact student learning in the next 8 weeks. So for example, at a data meeting this past fall, one of our 6th grade groups set the goal of, if we explicitly teach decoding strategies, then our students will be able to apply these strategies when they interact with different texts. And I'm going to turn it over to Ian to chime in for math.
A very similar process, and as you see in front of you, a 6th grade example, very heavy to ratios and rates. If we can explicitly teach and review reasoning strategies for comparing ratios and rates, then our students will be able to apply those strategies and solve real-world and mathematical problems. Similarly, below that, you'll see an 8th grade example at the far bottom of the screen, where we talked, and this actually applies to 7th grade as well, but just the concepts of expressions and equations. And we'll talk on the next slide about our ways of how we're trying to execute and formalize that in terms of the student experience.
And as far as the English goal is concerned, from the goal that we set for that 6th grade team, they were able to develop a cross-curricular plan that spanned English, reading, and beyond to really focus on breaking down words, looking at root words, looking at prefixes, looking at suffixes, with the goal of how can our students approach every single reading and be able to approach words that they might not understand, and really building those strategies. The examples we both shared were middle school based, but this work goes to our high schools as well. So for instance, just today I was in a 9th grade classroom where the goal that we had set was really looking at text structure and how an author structures a text and how that impacts our understanding as a reader. And in that 9th grade classroom, the students were interacting in a different way than they had in the past with text to really think through that process.
Ask a question before we get to the data? Would that be okay? I just am curious that for these responses and the plans and even the goal-setting approaches, how much of that would you estimate is new versus year over year we're reinforcing some of the same frameworks, methods, approaches, interventions that we may have utilized, last year, for example? I know we have some pilots, we have some new, like AIM, for example, but how much of this is net new versus we're refining some of the approaches we've already introduced?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be perfectly honest, right? We're definitely implementing some new things. Lesson study is something we haven't done before. Having our really intentional data dig meetings is something we started last year, but we really have honed in on and made cross-curricular this year. I know, at least speaking for English, we're in the process of really vetting new materials and really figuring out where do we need to grow our readers and how are we going to improve that through our curriculum development.
And I'll just speak to elementary in terms of professional learning. That is definitely an ongoing focus for us. I will say last year I stood and talked about text-dependent analysis questions in writing, TDAs are called, and I worked at the state level and learned and had the experience of serving on the committee and bringing that information back to our school district. So last year I was able to then provide professional learning in that specific targeted area, and I will say that we saw increases in TDAs in terms of how the students responded to that particular prompt. So I will say that some of it is a continuation, but when it states or when it relates to professional learning, it's definitely something that's ongoing.
I just can appreciate that as you introduce new approaches and frameworks, that obviously there's a process of having it be adopted, understood, implemented, being able to evaluate it, and then being able on the back end to see how has this impacted the results in terms of scores. So I think the extent to which we have continuous approaches that we can start to kind of build and hone and reinforce year on year, as opposed to maybe interjecting with a bunch of new stuff, for lack of a better, more refined term or way of saying it, will help us understand what really works and what really may not work. So I can appreciate the thought leadership and all of the creativity and the investment, but I think also having the opportunity to look at how certain interventions and responses work year over year over year can also help, determine its effectiveness, and also maybe help teachers as they have to master these new approaches, help them with their success in terms of the outcomes that we're measuring.
Thank you.
I was just gonna ask quickly, when was the last time for curriculum development that process was fully completed? Do you know, Ms. Bailey? For English, yeah.
I believe the last time it was formally completed was somewhere around 2016.
I'd say 2018.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll jump into our ELA data. You can see from 22 through 25. The short of it is that we have fewer collective kids scoring in the proficient and or advanced range, and obviously more kids scoring below that range. The numbers aren't massive, but we're moving in the wrong direction. That's the short of it. And then when you begin to break that data down more explicitly by grade level, you'll see some relative consistent trends where we're scoring kind of in the mid 60 percentile through 3 through 7, and then grade 8 we have a little bit of a drop. And yes, we're above what the state scores are, but that's an expectation. I think the expectation is that we're above where we currently are.
I have a quick question on,
Yes.
For the chart on page, I think it's slide 6, is the gray the students that didn't take it? The percentage of students that didn't take the PSSAs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So can we go back to the big bar chart real quick?
Oh, sorry,
That
I'm
one,
on
yeah.
2 different screens.
Yeah, that one. So just for future, I mean, I think it would be great to see 2 versions of this, one that's 3 through 5 and one that's 6 to 8, because you talk specifically around an action plan that is skewed or targeted, right, to elementary versus secondary. And I know we have the disaggregated data for the 1 year, but to kind of understand how those trends are changing elementary versus secondary over time would be good. So same chart, just
Right.
group your data 3 to 5,
Grade
6 to
level.
8, because just 8-9 years ago we were in the 80s for advanced and proficient, and now we're in the 60s. You know, it's like a 25% drop from where we were at. And honestly, again, I called this out the last time we talked about it. I don't understand why this room is not full. I do not understand why parents across this community are not here. Of all the issues that we hear about, high school schedules, facilities, literacy is at the heart, and I really applaud you guys for taking the cross-curricular approach. I think you're trying very hard and you're really trying to like do things in all the right way, but this can't just happen in our classrooms, and this also requires community engagement and involvement. And I know, I think you've got like a parent reading group or a community reading club right now, but like, you know, we gotta bring back like Book It or something that lights the fire. You know you want that pizza and the button. You're No, but like I'm serious, because like I have two kids who are special education students. I'm an avid reader. They were not avid readers. We've done something at home over this last year to like do a family book club, and every month we go to the bookstore. We buy they pick out whatever book they want. We're not all reading the same thing. And one of my children, who I would have not expected to be the bookworm, has found his genre. And that's kind of like, that's like a little bit of the magic. And I know you guys have worked hard to create options with the curriculum and the literacy, you know, that you bring into the classroom. But we've got to light this fire at home too. It can't just happen in the 8 hours a day they're in our buildings. Because if they're only seeing a book when they're in the building and they're not spending time in those books at home, this is going to be an uphill struggle. And I mean, I think if we do nothing else, like with our community over these next few years, like this has got to be it. Because once that takes root, even for a kid with a learning disability, oh man, it is so beautiful to watch. Like, my kid has read 6 books in like 3 months. Like, I would have been hard pressed to get him to do 6 books in 6 years, a few years ago, right? And I don't think I did anything magical other than create opportunity, right? Like, it took a lot of different factors. So I just really want us to think about when we do this is like we can keep looking at data and we can keep training people, right? But if we don't make this come alive in the homes of our students, there's only so much you guys can do, so.
I actually agree 100%, and I have to say, like, I've seen my youngest who struggled to learn to read, that when it clicked was when he found stuff to be passionate about. And I see this in my college students, they're not necessarily Westchester graduates, but the number of college students who've never read a book because they wanted to read a book is shocking. Like, I had students this semester, and teaching mostly freshman class, who when I assigned them a novel to read, they expected we were going to do a read aloud in class, in a college class. They had never been assigned a book to read on their own, let alone picked up a book to read for fun. Yeah. And that's really scary.
I'm just curious, when we look at, and I agree with you that it would be good to see this a bit more, you know, broken down by the grades, but even grades 3 through 8, the percentage of students that are English as a second language, that population within these grades, is that changed over this time from 22 to 25? Is that having any impact, do we think, on some of the results?
I will say some. I think our Hispanic population has almost doubled in the past 5-ish years. And, you know, quite honestly, conversely, our Black population is now below 5%, where it was pushing 8 to 9% 4 or 5 years ago. So there's a reversal there of numbers, but specifically us. Now, not all of those Hispanic students are those that, you know, don't speak English fluently or weren't born here, but that's how they're classified.
Yeah, and irrespective of the ethnicity, I was thinking just purely on the basis of students who have English as a second language, if that might have an impact on their ability to master or be otherwise proficient based on how the test is constructed.
And honestly, a lot of them, not a lot. There's a percentage of those students who don't speak English at home as a first language that aren't Hispanic speaking. They come from other countries as well. So our collective diversity is growing. And I'm sure that has some level of an impact.
I mean, when you look at the data, there's only about 212 students who are listed as English learners out of the 5,000 who took the exam. So it has an impact that's fairly minimal. I mean, one of the things that I do think we should point out is that this is the first year that we did give these exams on devices at the elementary school. So kids have been taking them paper pencil up until this year, and this year they took them on their iPads.
Is that a choice we made, or is that?
Everyone in the entire state will be required to move to iPads next year. So we decided to move forward with that process. It actually is easier for lots of things, test security, you have to lock tests up and all kinds of crazy things. But, I mean, the first thing when I saw our scores that dropped like they did, I was like, what do we do differently? I was like, well, one thing we did differently is the kids use devices this year. I think that's one thing we should definitely be thinking about. Another one is related to that, which is, how are kids using devices all the time? So, like, are we ensuring that when students are using technology that, you know, that it is something that they're taking seriously, it's not just consuming things. So, I mean, I think there's lots of things for us to dig into that related to the actual taking the exam. And I think a lot of us would rather not take an exam, especially a reading test online, if given the option. But that's not an option.
Are we able to give feedback though? Like I mean, even as an adult who's 26, reading something and having to take a test on it on a device, like I would not be able to do that. I need to read, I need to highlight, like, so I just can't imagine like how old is someone in third grade, like 8 or 9 year old doing that. Like I just don't see that, how that is conducive to them performing well on the exam.
Yeah, I mean, it is a challenge we're gonna have to overcome because the state has moved. Next year is the year that all exams will be online. There is no option not to do them online. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a challenge, but I mean, I think it also is why we need to have other assessments. We need to have other data that we can look at, that we can track. But yeah, I mean, that was one of my concerns right away this year is when we got our assessments back. I was like, that drop is weird. And then, like, you know, when you think about that, it definitely is a challenge. And if you notice that, I mean, the state data actually, the state dropped about 5% on average this year. And I think most districts are moving to online testing. So we'll wait and see. I mean, we should see some sort of equilibrium there, you would think. You know, after you move there, like next year, that wouldn't be a concern if we have other drops, you know. And we should see increases, but that was something that did change this year.
I mean, I just want to add on to what Katie said, because I fully agree, is we've got to find a way to create a feedback mechanism to PDE on this, because it's just not in the student's best interest, right? Maybe it makes security easier, maybe it makes things a little bit cheaper, right? But if the outcome is that we're not getting good data, then what's the point of the test? We invest a lot of time in the school year to take this test. I think there's also an important lesson here, though, for us to think about our use of screens in our curriculum, because clearly something breaks down, even just in an assessment, let alone in the acquisition of new learning and information. So I know I've said this before, and listen, I'm a technology professional, I make my living on it, but like there is a limit, especially with these young brains, of how much screen time. And I say that not just for the classroom, but also for homes. And I get it's hard, it's such a battle. It's sometimes just easier to say yes, you don't want to fight with your kid, but like these screens are really changing. I mean, the science is there. It's changing their brains, it's creating challenges for the teachers in the classrooms. They're seeing the way learning patterns are changing in ways we can't even evolve fast enough for. And we just have to be really mindful of this and try to give that feedback, because, you know, doing these assessments online, it's not, what's the benefit? Like, if we're not getting good data, what's the point? Like, there's no value in that. And you have to look at that in any business, is what is the return on the value. So I want to see the return of our literacy score, so let's keep going towards that.
I'd like to bring up, and Director Walmsley mentioned about how 10 years ago, we were an 80% proficient in advanced. And in September, and since I've been on the board every year, I ask, can we see more years of data?
Yeah.
Can we go back 10 or 15 years? Because this isn't really like that much of a difference, but I know 10, 15 years ago, the numbers were much, much better. And the other data I would really like to see, again, asked in September, maybe it's not available yet, or it's not available, but every year I've been on the board, I've asked, can we see the data compared to surrounding districts? Like, yes, we should be doing better than the state. To me, that doesn't really mean that much. If we were doing worse than the state, I'd be really concerned. But I would really like to see how we're doing versus Downingtown and Chatsworth, Unionville, and Great Valley, and, you know, all of our surrounding districts. Because that tells us a little bit more, is it something that we're not doing well, or is it a more societal issue? And I think that's important. And I would really, really like to see that. I'd like to go back at least 10 years, and I'd like to see the data versus our, you know, surrounding our competition districts. Is that possible to do? Like,
It is possible. That isn't available yet. And I think part of my, I don't know, concern with how we present the data in September, and it's incomplete, and we don't have disaggregated data, and then we present data in November, and we don't have what we need. We presented last month, and we don't have who's taking what classes because they haven't signed up for PIT yet. So, yes, we can do that. It's just a matter of when the state makes that data available to us. And for whatever reason, I think they seem to be later and later each year, even though more kids are taking the test online. And in my mind, it's more readily available.
you know, if it's April, then that's fine. But I'd like to see it, because what'll happen is, it'll, you know, fall to the wayside, and we'll never see it. So somebody along the way, we have to remember, we really want to see this data, because I haven't seen it yet. In 4 years on the board, I haven't seen it yet.
And Director Bowie, I realize this doesn't address your request, because I agree with you, that should be done. But there is actually a website that has the data points on all of the elementary schools in the state that I can share with you a link. Because, I mean, that was some of the research I did in advance of this conversation, and it actually normalizes also for socioeconomic conditions, which I think is a really interesting trend line to see with respect to the data points, and it's all tied to the same publicly available data that we're looking at here. And I can share you the RTK I have with the 10 years of data. So
thank you.
Sorry, I know you all have been saying that for a long time, but just as we're having this conversation, so this is like one data point we see, we've talked about, I don't know the name of them, but like the benchmarking tests that they were taking like once a month, those were like pretty good. Are there any other red flags that would indicate, like, are the vibes, like, like what are teachers saying? No, I mean, seriously, like these, like my class can't read as well as they could last year. Like, I don't know. Like we have this, and this is like not good, obviously, but I don't know, are there other not good things? And I know there are some good things.
I think there are, yes, to your point, teachers know, and I question the data that some of the assessments that we're using in Acadians, because I do believe that teachers know where their kids are, where they're struggling, what the needs are, but I also believe that that's some of the professional learning that we're putting in place where, yes, we're responding to this data, but these data days are also grounded in the common summative assessments that we're getting on a more frequent basis, and how are we making adjustments to what learning looks like in the moment, as opposed to waiting 3 months, getting a piece of data that may or may not be as good as we want it, I'll say. Whereas yes, teachers have the data. They know where their kids are challenged and struggling. But we also have to put practices in place that allow them to make the changes necessary in the classroom in the moment. So shifting gears to math.
I love that setup. Ms. Walmsley, maybe speak to some of your comments just about what's happening in our math classrooms. We notice a difference in our students. I always tell the story of how many of us in this room might be able to remember our very first phone number, because I memorized it by hand or by mind, and if I didn't know it, I couldn't get home that night. Even my own kids, I have 4 kids, and I think I only know 2 of their phone numbers off the top of my head. Just that recall of numeracy and number sense is just, it's just a different world, and the test hasn't changed, and our standards have barely changed since the advent of the iPhone. Not an excuse, but just kind of it's the reality of our student lives, and kind of what we're trying to do to help them find value and purpose in something that they might not necessarily need as much as they used to. So it is a little bit of an uphill battle, but we're working on it. Specifically to our classroom experience, I'll try to make that transition. At the elementary, we have a lot of different strategies and resources in place. Math specialists have been an integral role of trying to provide additional levels of support for our students. We try to enhance their access, not just to students, but also to their colleagues. They were key into helping facilitate last week during our in-service. Additionally, we brought in some AI-related tools, and we'll talk about the old school approaches we're taking, as well as some new school, and AI-related ones are definitely a little more new school if we can. Code Teach AI is specifically an AI tool designed to help teachers with having a conversation specific to our curricular program. So I can say, give me Unit 4, Lesson 6, and let's start by grade. I'm looking for additional practice problems on Unit 4, Lesson 6, or I'm trying to take this lesson and scaffold it for some EL students. So it's really keen into helping teachers do that and providing structure as well as worksheets. So trying to streamline their workflow so they can work on working with students, not necessarily creating extra resources or worksheets. I shared Snorkel before. Snorkel is an AI tool that students will work with online. They'll be on it for just a short period of time, but they get a prompt and they complete the math task, and then they record their voice into the AI system, which then evaluates it and gives students some feedback as well as a score. So, I can share how I know that 10 times 12 is 120, and I can talk about how I did that, and AI will kind of compliment me on what I did well and give me suggestions if I didn't do it appropriate. We piloted this with several grades, and a little 4th grade student over at Starkweather gave some great feedback where he said, Mrs. Buckley, with all due respect, you wouldn't be able to give us all this amount of feedback in this short amount of time. So there's value to that, but we also recognize the value of having a human-to-human interaction as well. So trying to find the best of both worlds there and that healthy balance I think a lot of us might be struggling with in education and otherwise. We have a partnership with Modern Classrooms, which is a great platform to come in and assist the work that we do using illustrative mathematics, which is our core program. We have a handful of teachers trained with that approach, and it's getting a lot of positive responses just in terms of how we can help engage students. So again, going back to that tier 1, what does instruction look like every day? We continue to work on that and try to make those enhancements. And the common summative assessments actually we're working on that K-12. How do we make sure that we have assessments that are appropriately rigorous, but also tied to our standards? Some really interesting feedback with a teacher just the other day where the feedback received was this prompt is too wordy and it asks for too much reading from the students. And then we looked back on the prompt and realized we took that directly from the state website as a released item. So whether we agree with it or not, this is kind of what the state expectation is, and we want to make sure that we're preparing them for that. So it was a good reflection point for us to recognize that that's the mark that we're trying to compare ourselves to and prepare our students for. Transitioning to secondary, we have a full implementation of IXL. We've been using it at the elementary schools, but now we have it fully implemented at the secondary. Ongoing teacher professional development. Similarly, as I shared, Snorkel is a great tool for that CER approach that Mrs. Bailey shared earlier tonight. We have those data digs that we're doing to work with our teachers, work with our PLC teams, have been tremendously valuable to really integrating a lot of the I'll say the paper pencil activities to try to help our students go back to old school approaches and just reinforcing some skills and foundational aspects of mathematics. Yes, we want to do things with technology because it's the world they live in, but also paper pencil has a lot of value. And we're going to continue to revamp a lot of our curriculum. We have several meetings upcoming that'll have a pretty key role in just setting the tone for the next, I'll say, 18 to 24 months. Looking at just what we want to do with our middle school program in terms of how to make sure we're fully aligned and buttoned up with everything that we do. In addition, we just finalized this morning, we have a training with Dr. Andrea Kolb, who's a contracted specialist for EL support. So she's going to come in and provide some professional development for our math teachers about how to work with them and provide additional structure and additional scaffolding to help students in math who are identified EL students.
So our 4-year math data is there, and it's trending a little opposite of what our English language arts data is. We have more kids who are proficient and or advanced in 2025 than we did in 2022. But our disaggregated data is not all that different, where we still have, sorry, our state data, yes, we're performing better than the state, to be expected. But our disaggregated data is not great, and we definitively should be trending in a different way for all of those groups. But I firmly believe that the work that our supervisors, our principals, our teachers are putting in is going to effectively result in improved data over time, but definitively by the end of this year. Like I do, you asked this question in September. Yes, the data should be better at the end of this year. And I think the work that's being done, whether it's through school plans, the work that we're doing with schools, the work that our intervention specialists are doing, it's going to pay dividends.
And Dr. Brown, I really hope that's the case, because as I internalize these data, the one thing that I kept thinking about is that most systems, irrespective of education or otherwise, but most systems produce the outcomes that they're either designed to produce or they're otherwise incentivized to produce. And if I use that logic and apply it to what we're seeing now, is really, this is only my second year looking at these data, so I can't go back many years, but it doesn't appear that we've moved the needle yet. And so with your affirmation that maybe, based on these interventions and methods and approaches, that we do expect to see some, something different. So it's not the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting to see different results. We do expect to see different results. But I hope what it does is just at least give some more assurance, especially to me that, I look at this and as a system, I say, is this system built around implicit bias? Are there factors of mythology and pathology embedded in these structures, which is why we can't seem to move the needle? So I'm encouraged, and hope springs eternal, and I really would like to know if there's anything else that, maybe we could be doing to help not reinforce, again, some of this that comes across very much as just unchangeable. And I find it frankly unacceptable, the fact that it's not unchangeable. Not just for us in our district, but just broadly speaking, because this isn't just a Westchester area school district phenomenon.
I have a question specifically about 8th grade math scores, and I know we've talked about this in previous years too, that these are our weakest scores. And, excuse me, it looks like this past year, 9% of our 8th graders rated proficient, or no, advanced in math. Do we know what percentage of our 8th graders are taking high school level math, and how those students who are doing those accelerated classes did on their keystones by comparison? Because we've had this conversation before about, maybe the kids who are doing keystones and PSSAs aren't taking both tests with equal weight, which then segues into a thing that I think is the bane of every educator's existence, which is the question, what does this count for? And when students are hyper-focused on what assessments count, what classes count, what is going to credential them, then things fall by the wayside. And if we can maybe bring in an ethos of it all matters, it all makes you a well-rounded person, it all makes you a better educated person. Maybe it's not career focused, maybe it's focused on making you a better consumer or better citizen. That getting away from this narrow focus on does it count is an important part of what we're doing too.
Now, I will just say that we did look at that anecdotally, but we didn't pull the hard data, but the kids who are, a grade level ahead in math are scoring advanced.
Yeah.
Like, so if kids are taking this higher, but unfortunately those are the only kids who are scoring advanced. So trying to figure out where those numbers are and trying to tabulate some of that, it's one of the projects we may engage Hanover in, is actually a data dig into that and having them actually look at that and pull it out and say, can we do some prediction based on what courses kids are taking, where they are in the sequence, with how they're doing. But I think the kids who are taking Algebra 1 specifically in 8th grade would be the ones we want to look at, and how are they then doing on the Algebra 1 exam, and how are they doing on the math exam, and really, what does that look like?
Right, if it turns out that 11% of our students took Algebra 1, or even there were a few students in my son's class who were taking Algebra 2 in 8th grade. So let's say we have 11% of our students doing that, and we only have 9% of them advanced. Well, then we've got some issues with motivation.
Can I just ask, I'm sorry, only 10% of the kids in 7th and 8th grade are in the more advanced math. I know you can take algebra in 7th grade, correct? So
If I may, usually it's approximately 21 to 22% of our students would be in like a 7th grade algebra class.
okay, so, and only 10% are getting advanced, so that means not even all of those kids in 7th grade are already taking algebra, which means they're very, very good math students. Half of them aren't even getting advanced. Exactly. Right, sorry.
Now, so I'm going to use an English pun. There's like a tale of two data sets here, all right? If we go back to that bar chart, this is where deaggregating into elementary and secondary would, I think, give you some insight on the math side, because there's two very different stories here. Comparatively to 2017, elementary is testing, when I look at 3, 4, and 5, we're testing where we were in 2017. So our issue, the challenge that we're having right now is not in the elementary. Your performance there is consistent. We're getting impacted in the secondary, specifically grades 6, 7, 8. When I look at the data, look, the speed bump on the data is 2020, 100%. I don't think that's the root cause on ELI. Sorry, I love it to be the root cause, but like there was a trend happening there pre-2020. Math, huge precipitous drop, specifically in like middle school, and it just keeps getting worse. But it's also because 6, 7, 8, that's your kindergarten, first, and second graders when 2020 happened. Because I have an 8th grader. And so I'll be really curious to see, as your current 3, 4, 5 move in, like you might want to really be thinking about that, because what the current 6, 7, 8 needs is not going to be what your 3, 4s, and 5s need. It's not going to be the same. It's going to shift on you again, because COVID absolutely impacted the math fluency on this cohort of students. That is a huge contributing factor here. The data just does not lie. So I think really looking at this historically, back to Director Fleming and Director Parkins's point, like historical data and looking at causation and all of that, like you have two different tasks in front of you, elementary versus secondary here, and it's going to continue to change. I think it's a little different on the ELA side, because I think that there's just a lot of things in society and culture and the way we interact with written word that have changed. That's a slightly different animal for you to tackle. But like I see some hope in these math numbers. Like when I look at 3, 4, and 5, I'm like, okay, our math fluency is retained. Like we're still good on that. So I'll be curious to see how those kids do in the next few years. So.
And I'll speak to the middle school. We definitely have the right people in the right place at the middle school in terms of teachers, teacher leaders. We have some exciting work ahead of us, but we certainly recognize the work that we have ahead of us. So we're hopeful that that work transfers into data points, and that's not why we do this, but we hope that the outcome is both student performance and achievement and confidence, as well as the data points. Appreciate the insight.
Segue to science.
Hello again. So for the elementary level, as Dr. Brown mentioned earlier, we have adopted Mystery Science as our core resource. And as a total aside, the kind of strategic, we're the Squirrel Socks tonight to celebrate our first grade unit of animal traits and survival. Mystery Science is neat in that it's grounded in anchor phenomena, which really is a way to tell a story and have the students do what is required of STEELS and shift from learning about science to figuring out what's going on and being able to explain a phenomenon. So they were presented with a situation where, you know, squirrels are kind of flittering around and building nests, and by the end of the experience, by the end of the story, or the storyline, they're able to articulate and explain why and how squirrels build their nests in trees, how that protects their babies, and ensures their survival. So it's a really neat way of bringing STEELS to life. So we're very excited about that for, you know, all of our elementary students all the way up. And if I can tell another quick story, we had a 4th grade student who had an appointment at their eye doctor, and the ophthalmologist ended up asking the student if they wanted to be an ophthalmologist by the end, because the student could totally explain how a cornea worked. So they're retaining a lot of things and contextualizing it because it's relevant, it's real, and it's coming to life for them in their world. So we're really excited about the shift to STEELS at all of our levels, because students are engaging in the authentic practices of scientists and engineers. They're observing, they're thinking, they're asking questions. They're using disciplinary literacy in terms of sourcing and contextualizing, and really engaging in that work that a real scientist would do. STEELS is multidimensional. That's one of the things that I love about it. It's really engaging them in developing and using models, which are science and engineering practices, applying cross-cutting concepts, making connections within the sciences and across all the disciplines, so noticing patterns, cause and effect. We do that a lot in our writing. And it's just a way of sense-making. And sense-making is more than making sense of the information. Again, it's personalizing it. It's a student kind of really attaching their own experiences, their prior knowledge, and their new knowledge, and really broadening their own world with a better understanding of a phenomenon and what's happening, and being able to communicate that to others. So the work continues at the secondary level. Again, we're continuing with our exploration of phenomena. We're conducting, you know, on-point investigations. Students are identifying the questions to investigate. We're writing CERs. We're really focusing on that reasoning component so that everything is grounded in evidence and connects back to the larger picture and how the science applies to their everyday lives, and it really helps them make sense of the world that we're all living in. So again, a lot of opportunity here is to make it as multidimensional as possible. It is grounded in NGSS, the Next Gen Science Standards, which they'll say are 3-dimensional. I would argue that STEELS is multidimensional in the sense that we are embodying students' identities, their interests, their backgrounds and experiences, their cultures, and really bringing a criticality to their experiences. So I'm really excited about the direction that we're going in science. In terms of the data, this was a field test year. So we don't have any data to reference, and you can put me on record for this. I'm excited to see where we land.
Frankly, I think that's probably the best thing I've heard tonight.
We will find out, obviously, after the spring administration, you know, how well we're doing in preparing our students for this new style of engaging with science. It is going to be a lot more practice-based and not just a simple recall of the concepts and the knowledge that they've obtained. So one thing I will say in meetings that I was able to be a part of this summer, the results will likely be a little bit more delayed in the spring because they're going to go through a process called standard setting, where we're determining what is below basic, proficient, and advanced, just based upon the field test data and then the first operationalized test. Questions about science? Again, no data.
It just seems like the STEELS approach would foster curiosity. Are you seeing students being more curious rather than just looking for the answer, but coming up with the questions?
Very much so. I've been fortunate to be invited to visit many elementary classrooms and a few secondary ones as well. The excitement level in the students, it really is like kind of off the charts. I'm so impressed with their thinking. They're getting ahead of, you know, some of our lessons in a lot of really great ways and noticing patterns that we haven't yet asked them to notice. And one of my other favorites was we were doing a lesson on bird traits and matching bird babies with bird parents. An eagle came on the screen and a student spontaneously burst into the chant, E-A-G-L. I was like, hey, you know, it's good to root for the home team while we're also learning about science. it was able to bring it right back, and the questions that are coming out are really profound, and I think a lot deeper and more extensive than we were getting before.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Thank you. It's an extensive report, a lot of important information, and we'll see where we are a year from now. And thank you all for presenting.
We are now going to shift to a follow-up from our dual enrollment presentation from last month.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I am presenting an update on advanced placement and collegiate opportunities as a follow-up to the October TLE committee meeting where the initial data on AP exams was shared. To begin, we'll just review again the 3 collegiate opportunities within the Westchester Area School District. The 3 opportunities, as we reviewed at the October committee meeting, include the advanced placement opportunity, the dual enrollment opportunity, and the concurrent enrollment opportunity. The difference between the dual enrollment and the concurrent enrollment is that the dual enrollment requires students to take courses at a college campus, where the concurrent enrollment allows students to earn college credit with our teachers being taught in our Westchester Area School District schools. The AP program offers college-level courses and exams to high school students. The coursework is comparable to what students would encounter in a college-level introductory course, allowing students to delve deeper into specific subjects and potentially earn college credit if they sit for an examination and score at a high enough level. Keep in mind that college credit is awarded by the post-secondary institution and at their discretion. Our AP course offerings are listed on the screen. You see that across these 8 areas, we offer a variety of courses. The request at the October meeting was to highlight which of the courses had been new to our program of studies, and so those are the courses that you're going to see reflected in blue highlight and bold on the screen this evening. You also heard earlier in the course proposals, you saw 2 additional AP offerings that we put forth for next year. So each year, as we review the program of studies, there are conversations around which AP courses we will be offering. AP exams are scored on the scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest possible score, 3 considered a passing score. As I shared, colleges and universities have their own policies regarding what scores they will accept. To see trends in our data, we went back to the 22-23 school year, and we'll see the progression across 3 school years worth of data. So back in 22-23 school year, we had 76% of our students scoring a 3 or higher. Moving to the 23-24 school year, we see that there is a consistent percent, again, of the 76% of students scoring the 3 or higher. And then, as was shared in the October meeting, we only looked at 2 years worth of data, the 23-24 and 24-25. We see this progression from 76% to 76 to 85% scoring a 3 or higher. When we look at our data, we also present here 3 years worth of the AP Scholar data. The AP Scholar Awards, to recap what was shared in October, recognize those high school students who have demonstrated exemplary college-level achievement on AP exams. The AP Scholar with Distinction is granted to students who receive an average score of at least 3.5 on all AP exams taken, and scores of 3 or higher on 5 or more of these exams. The AP Scholar with Honors is granted to students who receive an average score of at least 3.25 on all AP exams taken, and scores of 3 or higher on 4 or more of these exams. The AP Scholar is granted to students who receive scores of 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams, The AP Capstone Diploma goes to students who earn scores of 3 or higher in AP Seminar and AP Research, and on 4 additional AP exams they're choosing. And finally, the AP Seminar and Research Certificate is awarded to students who earn scores of 3 or higher in AP Seminar and AP Research, but not on 4 additional AP exams. Here you'll see the College Credit Report, which is formerly known as the Equity and Excellence Report. Again, 3-year trajectory here for our 3 high schools. Here the report is displaying the percentage of a school or district's entire 10th, 11th, and 12th grade classes who scored a 3 or higher on at least 1 AP exam, and the percentage of the senior class that scored a 3 or higher on at least 1 AP exam during high school. As you look at this data, please keep in mind that it reflects only the students who took the AP exam, not the total number of students accessing AP courses, which we talked about at last month's meeting. As a follow-up from our last meeting, additional student demographic data has been added to the slides for this evening to show the trajectory over the course of 3 years. Here is our data for student demographics from 22-23. We'll then flip to 23-24 so you can see this progression. And then finally to 24-25. And as a district, we are always looking at our course demographics to ensure that we create opportunities for all students. You will see the comparison here to the number of students enrolled in AP courses. We are working to maximize the utilization of the AP Potential Report, which we talked about last month, working with our high school building principals to identify students who are likely to earn a score of 3 or higher, and encourage those students to take those classes and sit for those AP examinations to earn the distinction of the college credit, as well as the potential awards that can go along with it, such as the AP Scholar. Now on to the dual and concurrent enrollment update. As Dr. Brown shared earlier, we did not have this data available due to the timing of the concurrent enrollment back in October. Although dual enrollment is offered to our high school students, currently we are seeing the majority of our students are opting for concurrent enrollment, so that's where we will focus tonight. Concurrent enrollment is a model, again, in which our Westchester Area School District teachers teach a course in our setting, but students may elect to receive college credit for these courses. We currently have partnerships with 2 institutions that will offer concurrent enrollment to our WCASD students. The first is through the Westchester University, and the second is through the University of Pittsburgh. And here you'll see that data for the current school year. You'll also see our student demographics represented for those who are taking the University of Pittsburgh classes. As you saw with the AP courses, our district is going to continue to examine the root cause as to why students of color are not accessing college courses with the same frequency as their peers. The Teaching and Learning Department will continue to work with our teachers, building administrators, and counselors to examine causes of disproportionality.
Will those be shared with us as well? I'm very interested in that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Zimmer. Our last discussion item, review, discussion of policy 217, graduation requirements. Dr. Brown, welcome back.
So as we met in June and talked about our TCHS students and trying to maximize the time that they have in their core programs at TCHS, we're looking to shift and basically TCHS remove social studies from their curriculum so our kids can no longer take social studies there. So we're now in a position where we need to find how they're going to take social studies and what that looks like. I think we have a temporary solution, but we're going to need to think critically about what that looks like going forward. The addition of the personal finance as a state mandated course for all kids to take is going to add pressure to that. It is a semester course for most students. The AP option will be available That AP piece isn't going to be probably accessible for most of our TCHS students, just based on scheduling, but adding a semester course in what is already a very tight schedule is going to force us to kind of really re-examine what that course trajectory looks like for our TCHS students. So it's something we're in the process of digging into, exploring, coming up with different models and different pathways for kids to meet the requirements and then figure out where we might need to make adjustments after next year.
So just, we're not covering social studies for TCHS
We are.
this year?
Yes, they're taking social studies this year.
Okay, we did that, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Thank you.
Our next committee meeting is on January 12th. There's no teaching, learning, and equity meeting in December. So our next meeting is January 12th at 6 o'clock. Thanks, everybody, for hanging in.